Lytudiep greets everyone. A shock came to Jame. Lytudiep has not yet recovered. A natural storm came and swept away everything. Property and what he and Lytudiep built. What will happen when the storm has not passed? Let's pray for the storm to pass quickly for Jame and Lytudiep. That autumn came without warning. In the northern highlands of Vietnam, the skies darkened and unleashed a torrential storm that lasted for days. Rain fell with relentless fury, and the rivers, swollen and angry, burst their banks. In just one night, peaceful villages were swallowed whole. Rooftops barely visible above the muddy floodwaters. Fields disappeared beneath the waves. Cries for help echoed across the submerged countryside, reaching no one but the storm itself. On the television screen, images of desperation flickered, children clinging to tin roofs, elders waving with frail arms for rescue, homes crumbling beneath the flood. James sat still in front of the screen, his eyes filled with a deep sorrow he couldn't put into words. Beside him sat Deep, silent and pale. This was her home, the North, and every image felt like a wound carved into her heart. Deep, James said quietly, his voice shaking. We can't just sit here. We have to do something. She clenched her hands tightly. I can't rest knowing what's happening. If we can help, we must. That same day, they sprang into action. Deep called friends, colleagues, and old contacts, gathering donations of instant noodles, water, warm blankets, rice, and raincoats. James emptied his savings, buying medicine, baby formula, flashlights, and life jackets. Their house filled up quickly with supplies, stacked high until there was no room to walk. By dawn, with rain still pounding the roof, they loaded everything into an old truck. James drove. Deep sat beside him with a first aid backpack slung over her shoulder. The roads were treacherous, flooded, muddy, some sections half collapsed by landslides. They joined a line of relief vehicles snaking slowly toward the mountains, headlights cutting through the curtain of white rain. When they arrived, the sight before them was almost too much to bear. The entire riverside commune was underwater. Red-tiled roofs floated in the flood like islands. Children, soaked and shivering, looked on with hollow eyes. Elderly villagers huddled in silence. But their gazes flickered with a spark of hope when the rescue teams came. James stopped the truck and immediately joined Deep and the volunteers to load supplies onto boats, rice bags, boxes of noodles, bottles of clean water. The cold water reached their knees, but neither hesitated. Deep's hands shook from the chill, but she kept working. James waded into the flood and helped an old woman onto a boat, his clothes soaked, his breath fogging in the air. The loudspeaker crackled. Help has arrived. No one will be left behind. The sound of weeping mingled with applause and the never-ending rain. That afternoon, they arrived at the commune's cultural hall, a temporary shelter for hundreds. People sat close together in damp clothes, exhausted, hungry. But when each packet of noodles or bottle of water was handed to them, their faces lit up with quiet gratitude. A little boy, no older than 5, his hair matted, held a milk carton with trembling fingers. Deep knelt beside him and gently wiped the mud from his cheeks. Where's your home? She asked softly. It washed away, he whispered. My dad's still outside the dike watching the buffalo. Suddenly, a shout rang out. A small boat had capsized mid-river. 4 people thrown into the cold, rushing water. Without hesitation, James dove in. The current was fierce, the water biting, but he swam with determination, pulling each person to safety, one after another. Deep and the rescue team hauled them up to land, cold, coughing, but alive. Applause broke out. Tears streamed down faces. Rain fell harder, but they had survived. Deep threw her arms around James. You scared me, she sobbed. But thank you. That night, They shared a hasty meal of plain rice with flood water and a few pieces of dried fish. But never had a meal felt so warm, so precious. James sat quietly, listening to stories from the villagers, of lost fields, drowned cattle, missing loved ones. He said nothing. His eyes dark and distant. Vietnamese people, he whispered, are unbelievably resilient. I feel so deeply for them. By morning, the flood waters began to recede. Mud blanketed the landscape. Roofs and fields emerged again, stained and broken but standing. The villagers got to work, shovels in hand, boots caked with dirt, but smiling through it all. James and Deep rolled up their sleeves and joined in. They handed out clean clothes, medicines, helped scrape mud from doorways and walls. Before leaving, an old man gripped James's hand tightly. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you, Miss Deep. You came all this way, through danger, to help us. We'll never forget." As the truck rolled out of the village, James and Deep looked out the window to see the villagers still waving, some smiling through tears. The northern sky, once grey and heavy, now cracked open to reveal faint sunlight. A promise, perhaps, of peace returning. James was quiet for a long time. Then he turned to Deep and said, This is what really matters. Helping people when they need it most." Deep, eyes rimmed with tears, nodded. "If we still have strength," she said, "we must keep going." But fate had one more storm to send their way. Days after returning, Deep fell ill. At first, it was just a cough. Then the fever came. She grew weaker each day, her strength drained by the days spent soaked and sleepless. James rushed her to the hospital, but rural resources were limited. They had to transfer her to the city. He had no money left, everything had gone into the relief mission. So he sold their truck, the last thing he owned, to pay her hospital bills. He sat in the waiting room night after night, eyes sunken, hands clasped in prayer. Deep tried to smile through the pain, her body frail and bones sharp beneath the sheets. "We did the right thing, James," she whispered one night. "I don't regret any of it." One rainy afternoon, she slipped away quietly, her breath fading like mist on a mirror. James sat beside her, holding her hand long after it had grown cold. He didn't cry. He didn't move. The world had gone silent. He had lost her, the woman who braved floods beside him, who believed in kindness until her last breath. He had lost everything, his money, his home, his heart. But he stayed. James never left Vietnam. With nothing but his grief and his memory of Deep, he joined a small humanitarian organization and continued his work. Whenever disaster struck, he was there, riding trucks, distributing supplies, lifting debris, holding trembling hands. In his heart, Deep lived on. Every act of compassion, every journey into danger, was a promise kept. The flood had come and gone, but its echo, like Deep's spirit, never faded. Love and humanity, fragile things, had proven stronger than any storm.